Hey, this is Trey. Before we get started in this video, you'll just have to forgive me. My voice is a little jacked up. Picked up a cold from my son. I just released 133 about an hour ago, and that brings out some new features. There's a lot of changes under the hood, but as far as functionality on the surface, everything is pretty much still the same. There's a new gradient overlay feature. Let me go ahead and move this over here. Okay, so right now, oh, another thing worth mentioning, the looks presets, they've been split off. No longer is there going to be a big long list. I mean, I'm sure there eventually, each one of these lists will grow to be long, but there's not a single long list anymore because I was running out of space. There's a code limitation. I don't know if it's a DirectX 11 limitation or if it's an ENB thing, but you're only allowed up to 255 techniques. Techniques are basically effect groups. And so I was using around 10 per preset, and after you get over 20, you're coming up really close on the 255 limit. So basically, instead of just keeping it at the limit all the time, I figured I'll just split it off so that you have a modern list, vintage list, and a color grading list, and any more that I want to add later on down the road. Okay, so moving on, let's immediately go to let's just hit red gamma 4 as a basic look to start color grading. Let's just turn color grading on really quickly. Now, I went over red log film in the last video, and in that you do need to expand the shadows and the highlights, but red gamma 4 is a decent starting point because it's already expanded. So let's just do a quick grade here. Push this over to blue. Pull some of the color out and just add a little bit. And let's warm up the highlights. And let's take some of that green out of the midtones. There we go, that's looking lovely. Oops, wrong thing. Okay, so now we've got a basic look here that we just very quickly did some color grading on that red gamma 4 image. Okay, so what is this gradient overlay thing all about? Let's go ahead and collapse these, and let's enable the gradient overlay. Now, when you first turn it on, nothing's going to happen if these are both set to middle gray, which they are. This basically works the way it would in Photoshop. If you have a gradient and you set the blend mode to overlay, that's exactly the effect you're going to get here. So let's just set this to 190. Right now, instead of choosing a color here, I'm just defining it here. Set this to, and I'm going by memory, but okay, I think I've got those right. So now that I've got this selected, I'm going to start pushing color in. The way this works, the default settings for the gradient rotation is at minus 90 degrees, which means that this is the top and this is the bottom. So as I start pushing this color, you'll see this part of the screen start to get a color cast to it. And there you go, it starts getting nice and blue. Okay, so gradient color 2. Yep. So basically, I defined the color just by memory, but just by typing in the hue here. But you could also do it the same as I did with the color grading up here. And so toggling that gradient on and off, you can see it has a dynamic effect on the image. Now, the effect is not really made necessarily for gameplay, because as I turn this off, it becomes obvious, and it's like you've got a weird filter on your screen, and it's just not going to really work all that well for gameplay. What it is for taking really cool screenshots, because right now the effect is kind of transparent. You can almost not tell it's there. When I take it off, you can see it's having a big effect there. It just allows you to have more dynamic shots. Now, interesting feature is rotation. So instead of having, you know, top to bottom, I can actually rotate the entire gradient. So let's see, flip it on its side. Now, that made the center point of the gradient go off a little bit, so that's what the shift value is for. So as I pull that in, you can see the orange coming in from the left there. And then once again, you can see that we've got a nice dynamic image where we've got some color contrast of the blue in the right and the orange in the left. And again, if you use it subtly, you can make some really dynamic screenshots. And then gradient opacity is just, you know, you can, clearly you can pull the amount down or up. And then there's a quick toggle to turn it off. Again, the same way to reset everything. Probably in next release I should probably put some reset values here like I did up here. But you can just do a 0.5 here, set this to -90, and then set these to middle gray by going to the HSL mode, type 0, and you can leave that at 127 or 128, either one will do. So set this to 0. So as long as this is at no saturation and lightness is at that, that's going to be middle gray and nothing will happen. And that's a full reset for the gradient effect. Now, if you noticed up here this says 134, you can ignore that. This is essentially 133. I just went ahead and put that in there because I'm going to start working on some of the new features that are coming up in 134. And so I just put that there so that I don't forget to update the version number on the next release. I also added this dithering option here, and the reason I did that is because if you're dithering, it's a lot harder to compress footage for H.264. So I just had this little toggle here for myself so that hopefully this video file size won't be so gigantic. I also turned off film grain, which if you're trying to save on file size for streaming or for saving local videos, I would recommend turning off grain unless you just need the grain to be visible in your video. Turn grain off, and then in the next release there will be a dithering option that you can turn that off too. And I don't know how much it'll help, but it should help some make the image a little less difficult for the encoder to compress. Anyway, that's just a quick update, guys. The only new thing is this screen archery tools section. I'm trying to get some help from another Nexus member about making a new shader to have image overlays in here so that for photographers that like to work with like the rule of thirds and the golden ratio, there will be some check marks here that you can check that and add those things in there to take great screenshots. But anyway, guys, hope you're having a great day. My day's not going so great because I'm kind of sick here, but I'm still going to just keep hammering away at this preset and try to make it the best I possibly can. Hope you guys are enjoying it, and for my American friends, it's Thanksgiving week, so have a great Thanksgiving. It'll probably be after Thanksgiving before I make another video. Anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.